Tell us a tough time you experienced in your marriage and how did you get through it?
So I think a tough time that we had was when we learned my daughter had an autism diagnosis. I tend not to say she has autism because that's not what the word says. The word says we are healed. So
Amen.
I tend not to say those things. I just tend to say they have diagnosed her with this because that's what they say she has. So it sounds like a distinction without a difference, but it means something to me. So it's not claiming that thing. It's just saying this is what they say she has. I don't say she has it. So going through that process as a parent who has expectations and as a parent who has goals for what they anticipated their lives would be like, this threw an absolute monkey wrench in us on an individual level and on a marital level, because it heaped an enormous amount of stress on us individually. And there were times as we were going through this, and we're still going through it, so let's not say that but early on, that I wasn't sure we were going to make it, because everything, being very transparent, sex stopped because she's so stressed out. And then it becomes a trickle-down effect. How come if we can't do this and now I'm stressed and now now the baby's crying and now the baby's doing this, and it just becomes just a compounding interest kind of situation. And you got to figure out how you're going to manage those things. So what we ended up doing, we ended up having to move because we had to go to a different location that had better services to support her. And that move kind of gave us a new start. It kind of gave us a place to start over again. And we were having another baby during that move. So everything kind of allowed us to take a step back, and it only reared its head every now and then over the next 22 years. And every now and then it still rears its head. So, but we are unified against this thing. We see so many couples that don't survive special needs children. I think Yolanda said, it's over 50%. So we don't know why those people had their issues, but we were determined that we were here and we were in this thing together, and that was the bottom line. So we were going to stay the course and get through it and not be disrespectful or mean or rude to each other and things like that, even though we didn't always agree.
Right. And give each other grace that even though we disagreed on a tactic, should we let her cry it out? Should we go for her? should we be more disciplinarian? Should we be more, relaxed and come at some of the behavior challenges a different way? Oh, okay. Just to make sure my voice is coming through. But we had to remember that both of us have the best interest for our family at heart. And at the bottom line, at the end of the day, we both want what's best. No one's trying to control the other for nefarious means. We're just trying to do our very best in a tough situation. And I just want to add this for our people in the autism community, because the way we talk about autism in our families, our daughter is very severely affected by some of the behavioral and communication challenges, and she has a comorbidity of an intellectual disability. So for us, our challenges are very they loom large, but that's not to say that every family that receives a diagnosis of autism is going to have our same challenges. And I just want to say that for all of our autistic people out there, we respect that it's a part of who you are, But we're only speaking of our specific challenges and our specific situation. And so that was a big thing for us, not to get angry at each other, because we were trying to achieve the same thing, just in different ways. So maybe we'll try some of what you're thinking this time, and we'll try some of what you're thinking in another situation, because there's no manual.
Right.
So yeah, so that was definitely, it continues to be a major challenge with our children. And it's not just our oldest, who is the first one. Our daughter is the one who is diagnosed with autism, but it's our son too is not a typical kid either. And so, you know, he doesn't have a diagnosis or anything, but there are a lot of times when we feel differently about how he should be raised. And I think that's been the biggest challenge throughout our whole marriage.
We wrote a chapter in the book about it. It's called My Little Love. And it's about learning to raise the child that you got, not the child that you wanted or that you prayed for.
Yeah.
Ooh, I'm glad y'all put that out there, because that even add more value to people purchasing a book. Because I have 2 kids with autism, right? So I totally get it. Or that's been diagnosed with autism, right? And they're little kids.
Yes.
Yeah, I had to reframe my verbiage. So thank you for that, Clarence. Yeah,
you got it.
So I get it, but they're on a smaller level, like they're 3 and 4. So when my wife and I, and of course, just quick backstory, the listeners, the Brave Hearts community, they know the story. But when I remarried, my wife and I, we had 2 kids together.
Okay.
Both of those boys were diagnosed with autism. So that presented a issue within itself. So hearing you both talk, I'm like, I get it. So yeah, that's something,
especially in those early years. But there's way more questions than there are answers.
Yes.
From the professionals, between yourself, your family. I don't know if you have autism in your family, but you know, we didn't have anybody who had any kind of experience.
Right.
And so it was just us trying to make it work. And you think, oh, let me go to this parent support group. And that's not always a good fit, you know, for what you're dealing with. And so the church is telling you, just pray harder. They're going to be healed.
It's your faith. You lack your faith.
You don't have faith.
Oh my God. Yeah. Sometimes we just got to do better in the church.
Yeah.
But I understand. I totally understand. Because, and Yolanda, to your point, because I do have a family member who has a child that was diagnosed with autism, and it was like a surprise to all of us. So then here I come, get remarried, and have back-to-back kids diagnosed with autism. I'm like, so here it is. We taking these DNA tests, like we're doing. My wife is a nurse, so she's like on top of everything.
I'm sure. Reading the research and everything.
Right. Yes. I got one of those.
Yes.
I got one of those researchers. I got one of those right there.
I'm in public health, so same thing. Yeah, same thing.
What I said was, I really do appreciate you allowing us to be on your platform. You know, when we started this journey, we started identifying is too strong a word. We started researching and looking for people who were doing similar kinds of things, because our people were telling us how needed it was and how how sparse the landscape was for finding this kind of information. So, you know, I found you on Twitter. I started listening to your a couple of your things when I cut the grass. It gives me good conversation while I'm cutting the grass. And you had a show with BJ, is your friend, right?
Shout out to BJ. Yeah, I met him I found this podcast one day and started listening to him. So
okay, yeah. So although I didn't 100% agree with some of the things he was saying, what I said to Yolanda was, at least he makes sense. At least he's connecting his dots together, and you see how he got to where he got. So I'm okay. I can live with that type of dialogue. But we were So we started doing our research, looking for people who we could connect with, who we could share our book with, but also collaborate with to kind of understand this environment. And it's so many people out here putting out this kind of content. And if anybody is saying that it's sparse, it's only because they're not looking. Because if they just, I mean, the way the algorithm, and I use that with quotes, the algorithm, all you got to do is start with 1 or 2, and next thing you know, you'll be recommended for so many more. And, you know, that's kind of what's happened to us. We've been on, you know, a few different podcasts and a few different people who, like yourself, we did not know at all until we started looking and saw your name and said, hey, you know, we think we can contribute to his community and with some of the things and vice versa. So that's how we got here.
I love it, man. I love hearing those testimonies. Yolanda, is something that you want to say?
Oh, I just wanted to add that I am elated that there is this much content out there, especially within the Black community, with us talking about what it takes to make relationships last, that it is possible that you can start again, even though the first time did not turn out the way you wanted, that there's still room to learn and to grow and to unlearn some of the baggage that we bring in from how, you know, the Black husbands and wives have had to respond to things based on the trauma that they experience in their life outside of the relationship. And we've grown up seeing that. And it's just so heartening to see us unlearn those things, learn what works, you know, apply scripture in a balanced way. If you know, for those of us who are Christians, instead of a legalistic way. And, you know, so I'm excited. I'm excited that we've entered this space and we see so much richness here.
Yes. And the one thing, because people, they start to downplay podcasts, and I don't want to get too far off topic, but since we're here to talk about it.
Since we're here, we kicking it, right?
Yeah.
There was a lady I had on my show, Tanisha Talk. Shout out to her. She's a YouTuber. And we did a show called Change the Algorithm. And it's basically, just like you said, Clarence, we have to change what we see. If we start clicking, because people, I don't see healthy relationships. My wife and I was just on the interview last night, and we talked about this very thing. And I said that people find what they want. The issue with when people say that they can't find healthy relationships, what they're saying is they don't look like Jay-Z and Beyonce.
Right.
They want the glitz and the glam. They want the 7-house mansion marriage. They don't want to put the marriage together. My mentor, he always told me, he said, great marriages aren't found, they're built.
Amen to that.
That's good. That's a word.
Yeah. So a lot of people don't want to lay that foundation. They want, they talk about, I don't want to build a bear man and all this other stuff. I get it. But people aren't willing to lay brick by brick to build something beautiful. They want it already made. They want it.
Yes, they want it Instagram ready.
Come on.
We can just start taking our photos. Look at everything we have. Look at what we do. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And there's so much behind that people, like you said, don't want to do the building first.
Yeah, they don't.
I think we wrote it. I think we wrote a chapter in our book that talked about that. That talked about marriage, people only letting you see what they want you to see in their relationships. And that is not often the true essence of their relationship. It is just they showing you just the outside.
And I don't disagree with just showing the outside. A lot of stuff we need to keep in-house, discuss amongst ourselves.